Hey guys, I'm User and welcome to my most anticipated showcase video of the year to celebrate the event that was Deadpool and Wolverine. And here I have the Mercantile himself, Deadpool, who is secretly Ryan Reynolds, by the way, but no one needs to know that. And the X-Men himself, Wolverine, played by Hugh Jackman. Now, I know this showcase is like 2 months late, but like I said in that Cousins update video, like I did about a month ago, and if you want to check out that video, link to the video is right there. I talk about all our customs I'm doing throughout the year and in the future. But like I said in that video, these two have just been taking so long to make, especially Wolverine, and I did just wrap them up recently, and I've just been so excited to finally showcase these guys, because these have to be some of the best customs I've ever made, and it was totally worth it because the movie was amazing and just so funny, and is one of the best projects in the multiverse saga so far. I don't know if it fully saved the MCU, but we'll have to wait until next year for those other projects, and this is going to be a long one because a lot went into these two. So yeah, guys, with all that said, let's get started.
Wade, you can finally matter.
Vanessa. I want to see Vanessa.
So starting off with the Merc with the Mouth himself, Deadpool, also known as Marvel Jesus, and Ryan Ray Wilson. Now, Deadpool was the first figure I saw because he was clearly the simplest figure to make between him and Wolverine, but that doesn't mean there were some challenges. But before I get to that, I do want to talk about the accessories that Deadpool has, which is a total of 7, so I do want to get those out of the way first. So starting off with the 2 pistols that he has here, which were originally these Lego Star Wars blaster pistols. If I can find it, if I can find the piece. So yeah, they were originally these pistols that I pretty much like to sanded the scope off, and I did sand off the back, and I did sand off like the corners of it, and don't mind the background, but I did sand the corners a little bit just to get that nice sleek look, which these were originally painted in matte black with some gunmetal outlines, but I decided not to do that since like it would have just not looked that good, and telling by the reference, the guns were more of a gunmetal type color, so I just pretty much painted them in gunmetal. I did want to paint some detail around the guns, but I decided not to because they just look clear that way, and I just didn't want to. Yeah, now getting the pistols out of the way, so we can talk about the adamantium katanas that he gets from the TVA. So just putting them on, just giving him the blades really quick, so you can see that there. So these are just pretty standard Lego katanas that I just took, and I did, and no modifications I did were to the wrist guards or like these parts over here, which I just did sand and carved a bit with the X-Acto blade and my filer, just to get that nice rounded look to them. And they're not really rounded, more like a curved look to them. And I did, and for the blades, I did paint engravers, and I did paint them in silver just for the silver to pop more. So there's that, and they do look pretty clean. So now getting the swords out of the way, so I can just really quickly talk about Baby Knife, which is just standard, which is one of my daggers from my drag series from like last year. So just released it for Devil to have like his favorite baby knife from the movie, so you can see it there. Now moving on to the final 2 accessories of Deadpool, which are the sword sheath pieces, which I did make 2. Where's the other one? But yeah, so this one right here is pretty much the one with the swords are actually in the sheath itself. And let me tell you guys, making this was just such a huge pain to do. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, and the sword sheath pieces are actually made up of multiple pieces of red construction paper, and also here's the other one, so you can see that there. And making these pieces were just not fun at all, and especially having to glue them all together. It was just like, bro, I am not making pieces like this again. Like, they were so hard, not to mention like trying to get the neck brace in right. It's just like, bruh, it was just so annoying. And I did paint a gray outline around the entire piece itself, so you can see that there, and I just dropped it, so that's just fantastic. But yeah, you can see that there. So yeah, and I think that's pretty much going to be it for the sword sheath pieces for Deadpool. So now we can remove the sword sheath piece really quick, so we can finally talk about the figure itself, which, like I said, was simple but included some challenges like the head. And let me tell you guys, making this head drove me nuts. And this is actually the second head I did, because the first head is just I don't know what this is. Like, this is literally the first head I did because, and like I did paint with these black lenses, small, like the black area is very small, and it just didn't look that good. And not to mention, like, when you're working with red paint, you know, when trying to do corrections, it builds up very quickly, so that was just not fun at all. And this turned out like absolute crap. So yeah, but the second head turned out much cleaner. And to paint the black eyes, I pretty much used a pencil. And someone did recommend this on the community tab post, where I pretty much just took a pencil, drew the outline, which did take a bit of a long time to do, by the way. But after all that was done, I went over them with black, then filled them in with black. And once all that was done, I painted the gray eye marks there, so you can see that. And I did paint the white eyes, which were just a pain to paint, by the way. And I did paint the lines that go from the bottom to the top of the head that go all the way to the back here. And by the way, this figure is heavily inspired by, I think, Brick Brothers. I don't know. Like, here's like the photo of like the main reference I used for Deadpool. But yeah, you can see how this figure is heavily inspired by that. And once the head was done, I of course went to moving on to the torso, which was a bit hard, but not that hard at the same time. So the torso has multiple 3D elements, like the strap here, the shoulder pauldron, these two chest pieces. The belt has multiple 3D elements. And once I applied all of those, I went straight to paint work, which, by the way, I was actually originally gonna paint at least the base color for the torso was originally gonna be red. I was just gonna paint these black designs on here, but it was gonna be really hard. And so pretty much what I did was I just painted like the gray outline. I pretty much like painted like the red designs in gray first, and I went over them with red. And I did try to paint like some like that detail that Deadpool has around his suit, like that, like those dark red outlines. But that's kind of ended up looking like a bit of a mess. And the torso did take a good long while to paint, especially the belt buckle here with the logo. And painting these eyes were actually really hard because, of course, white paint sucks to work with. So yeah, and the back was also a bit challenging, but not that challenging at the same time. So, you know, it's like pretty much like the exact same thing. And I also really think that like the strap here is actually like the shoulder pauldron and the strap are actually connected, and that's actually not really the case. These are actually two separate pieces. I was originally gonna have like the strap like go around like to the back, but that was just not gonna work and have this piece over. But these two are actually two separate pieces on their own. So there's that. And the back, of course, was actually just very simple. And I originally got the back inaccurate. Like, if you saw in my Customs Update video, like, the back looks very different. That's because I used an inaccurate design. And I was like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. So, I, of course, painted the back to make it as accurate as I possibly can. So, you can see all that there. And now we can finally move on to the arms. And the arms were, of course, pretty straightforward. I was originally going to have 3 elements for the arms, like, you know, like the shoulder parts here or like these straps. Those were originally going to be 3D elements, but I decided just to paint them, since like the black will pretty much like make them at least stick out a little bit. And yours were actually pretty straightforward. You know, painting these designs were a little bit tricky, and also like painting like these straps like with the golden buckles and the gray outlines were definitely not easy. Like, that actually did take a good long while to do. It's usually having to paint these tiny gold buckles around here. So yeah, there's that, and you can see some like that dark red detail right there going across the entire figure, which you'll see on the leg soon. But you can see that there. And I did sand the inside of the arms just a little bit, you know, just for it to like at least not really stick to minifigure's torso. So there's that. So I think that's gonna be for the arms. Now moving on to my favorite part, the legs. And of course, you know me, I hate painting legs, especially when applying 3D elements onto them. And when it came to applying the 3D elements onto like the legs here, man, it just took so long. And I think I stayed until like what, 340, just applying the 3D elements on the legs alone. And like these straps here, which are a bit of a pain to cut, like were just so annoying. You know, for some reason, like he has like 1 strap on one leg and 2 straps on the other leg. I don't know why. And so you can see that there, and he does have like those ammunition cartridges that on this leg right here, which were just painted. And of course he does have the gun holsters, which, by the way, the gun holsters actually ran a bit into an issue with that, where like when I applied the gun holsters, I realized that, oh yeah, once I paint them, that when I move the hands, the paint is gonna tear. So what I did was I pretty much once I painted the legs first in the base layers, I painted the holsters first. And what I did was that I applied a good layer of sealant on both of them. And I had to leave them on to wait for it to cure for what, 12 hours, which was just ridiculous. But it turned out perfectly because now when I move the hands, the paint won't tear. So that turned out pretty good. And you can see that the holsters here consist of two pieces, like the base piece and the second piece right here. So you can see that there. The knee pads are 3 pieces, and so is the pocket for the baby knife. So you can see that there, and you can see all that paint detail. And painting the legs did take a good long while, especially the boots here, which actually did do something with the boots, which is actually something I haven't really done with any figure, where when it came to painting red, I first of all painted the black outline first, and then once that was done, I painted gray. I painted the black and light gray, and once that was done, I went over the light gray with dark gray, just for the dark gray to stick out more. And that's actually the trick that most customers use when it comes to working with red paint. And I never really used that trick before, so using it here actually turned out pretty good and actually just made the figure look really clean. So you can see all that paint detail there, and you can see those gold buckles there, which were a bit of a pain to paint. And of course, the detail wraps around on all 4 sides of the minifigure's legs, so you can see that there. But yeah, guys, I think that's pretty much going to be it for the legs, and pretty much going to be it for the figure itself. Now, there are some things that I kind of wish I did differently with this figure, with the sword chiefs, but overall, man, Deadpool is pretty much I think my second or third best figure I made this year, and I know some of you are going to ask, why did I not make the golden pistols that he gets from Cafe Gratitude?
The proposal.
Shut up! But I'm going to be honest with you guys, I just didn't want to go through the process of making 2 of these pistols again, with all the sanding, all the painting. I just didn't want to go through that, especially mainly with the sanding. I didn't want to go through the process of doing all the sanding, and it did take a good long while for me to get the pistols to look identical to one another. So that was just ridiculous. So I didn't want to go through that process again. So there's my answer to that question if some of you were asking. But yeah, guys, I think that's going to be it for Deadpool. He was literally the funniest part of the entire movie, right next to Gambit. And I can't wait to see his future in the MCU. Hopefully we'll see him in Doomsday or Secret Wars. But yeah, guys, that's going to be it for Deadpool. And now it's time to move on to his lover, Wolverine.
For the first time in my life, I am proud to wear this suit. It means I'm an X-Man. I am the X-Man.
Now moving on to the X-Men himself, Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, which finally, after all these years, he finally donned the iconic yellow and blue suit after foxing him dirty so many times with whatever the black suit was in those from the previous X-Men films. And now he's finally donned in Deadpool and Wolverine. It probably has to be the best live-action comic book suit to date. And this figure was by far the most challenging figure I've ever made, right next to Kang and Keaton's Batman. However, it ended up being worth it, and now we can finally talk about the figure itself. But before we get to that, I do want to talk about the claws really quick, which are just the standard Lego claws I just took and painted silver. I was originally planning just to cut the bars off and just glue them onto the hands, or just use staplers, but I decided against that, so I just went with these. So yeah, now we're moving the claws really quick so we can talk about the head, which the head is just the Wolverine CMF head from last year that I just took and repainted the munchops in my own custom brown color. And I did paint a bit of a beard right there, as you can see that there. And I also did repaint the eyebrows. And I did take a Superman hairpiece and repaint my own custom brown color. So you can see that there. Now I'm going to have to cut to the cowl really quick, so let's cut to that. So moving on to the cowl really quick. The cowl is just the standard Wolverine cowl that Lego's been making since 2014. And I was actually super hesitant to paint this because this is the only Wolverine cowl that I have. So yeah, so all I did was I just painted the entire thing. I just literally painted the entire thing. And for the yellow here, I actually painted the base layer in gray first, and then I applied 5 coats of yellow paint, which the thing with yellow paint is that you have to apply multiple coats of it for you to at least get a nice finish. And when I was applying each coat, there was some areas that were kind of sticky out, some more of a bumpy areas. So what I did was I used the end of my push pin to smoothen out them, since it has a round bottom. I pretty much used that to smoothen all the bumps to get a nice smooth finish that you see there. And I did the same while I was just painting the detail on the cowl, which I could have at least painted the detail in the color that I used for the outlines, but that didn't happen. So I just left it in black, and the detail, and you see the detail in the black areas here, which which is cowl is actually heavily inspired by you FNAF Boys Deadpool Wolverine custom items, Deadpool Wolverine showcase. Link to a showcase will be in the description below. Go check that out. His Wolverine custom is just amazing, so go check that out. So yeah, you can see all that paint detail there. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say for the cowl. I think that's going to be it for the cowl. So now we can move on to the rest of the figure, such as the torso. Now the rest of the figure itself was just absolutely insane, mainly when it came to the sculpting on the torso and the arms and on the back. The sculpting was just insane. I think the most sculpting I had to do for any LEGO minifigure. So I do want to talk about the front of the torso first. So the front of the torso is mostly sculpted mainly on the upper chest, the abs, and the belt. The belt was originally going to be a 3D piece, but I decided just to sculpt this to match the definition of the abs and the chest area here. So you can see that there. And I also did do the same on the back as well for the back plate and the belt. So you can see that there. And when it came to painting the torso, it was insane. So it was, first of all, in a base layer of black, and then what I had to do is I had to apply a thin layer of light gray paint, then go over that with yellow, and then I had to smooth that even more using the technique I used with a push pin. And having to do that across the entire figure was insane, especially on these sides, especially on the sides here. When you're having to paint these lines. You can see that there. Especially having to paint those were also not easy, and having just to paint the yellow outlines and go over them with yellow, it was just insane. And these blue areas here, on the sides, which the blue is my own custom color, by the way, were also not easy, especially I'm painting these yellow lines on the black areas here. That was not easy, and the X symbol was also very tedious to do. Try and get that as symmetrical as I possibly can was definitely not easy, but it turned out pretty good. And I was originally gonna make it a fully clean Wolverine suit with no battle damage at all. But I decided just to just engrave some the battle damage, such as these bullet holes on the chest area here and on this side here, and also kind of this where Deadpool's sword goes through. So you can see some of that. So you can see that there. And painting this black line in the center was also not easy. And also the same went for the back. And the back was actually a lot simpler to sculpt. And it was actually not that hard to paint at all. I had to try to get it as accurate as I possibly can, of course. But it really wasn't that hard. And I just did the exact same process, paint the entire back in light gray, then went over that with yellow. And I did paint these blue sections here, which were a little bit more complicated to do since I had to try to get them as symmetrical as I possibly can. So that was not fun. And yeah, and also painting painting the detail on this back part of the belt here was also not easy. So yeah, man, the torso itself was just insane, but I'm so happy on how it turned out. So now we can move on to the arms. Alright, so I do want to take some time to talk about the arms, and that is because the arms were quite possibly the most challenging thing I had to do for this figure, and that's because of the shoulder pads. And bro, let me tell you something. Sculpting this crap made me want to lose my mind. I'm actually not joking. And these were actually the second pair I did, because the first pair, which is a photo of them, what is it, there or there, I don't know. But those are actually the first pair I did, and those took about maybe 2 weeks to get right, because I just had so much trouble trying to get the shapes right and all that stuff, and making sure it wasn't too thick or too thin or too big. I wanted it to at least be as accurate as I possibly can make them, and I thought I got them right. But then one day when I was painting them, they came off. And it made me want to literally cry. And I tried applying them back on with the glue I use, and which really isn't that good. So then it made me realize, oh yeah, I have to get better glue. So what I did was I scrapped those arms, and once I got back from my trip, I basically did these ones, which the shoulder pads for these ones actually took I think about about a week to get right. And once they were done, and once I dried them, I applied these 3D gauntlets here, which are just standard 3D pieces that wrap around the minifigure's wrist, so you can see that there. So then, once they were applied, I went straight into paint work, and let me tell you something. Painting these were actually not fun. I spent about, I think, a good 4 to 5 days just painting these arms alone. So yeah, you can see all that paint detail there. Painting the shoulder pads weren't actually not that complicated, but painting these yellow bits, I actually spent about, I think, a full day just trying to paint the outline on these yellow areas here, and that wasn't fun whatsoever. And it was like painting these yellow lines on top and on the bottom of the gauntlets weren't also fun. Just try and get the shapes right and try and get it as accurate as I possibly can. Like, bro, it just wasn't fun, and I'm just so happy to have finally gotten them right, and they turned out exactly how I wanted them to look. But yeah, this drove me insane, and I hope to never do sculpting like this ever again. Though I may have to at some point, but I don't know. But yeah, that's gonna be it for the arms. Now moving on to my favorite part, of course, the legs. And boy, oh boy, was I not looking forward to painting these at all. Not only because I had to paint legs again, but I had to use yellow, and that was not going to be fun. But it really wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Though I had to apply like multiple coats, and the legs were actually the part of the figure I actually applied the most coats of yellow paint on. But what I did is that I actually watered the paint a lot more frequently, just like for the paint not to build up, especially on the thighs and like on the top here, and so that the paint won't rub like when I move the minifigure's legs. So that just made my life so much easier, but at the same time still wasn't easy when it came to like painting like the yellow outlines, and especially painting like these side bits here, trying to paint these side bits were just not easy. So what I did was I painted them in gray first, and I painted the blue designs in black, and then once I painted the blue designs, I went over them with yellow and painted the detail on, and that was just not fun, at all. And the knee pads are the only 3 pieces I had to apply on here, and also those were a massive pain of paint. Especially trying to fit as much detail as I possibly can on there. Like, it just wasn't fun, man. And especially like these black lines here, like, I actually had a lot like trouble trying to paint these on. Like in the previous photo, they were originally like very thin, but like later on I decided just like to make them screen accurate. And once I did that, I of course painted the boot detail, and I really didn't have much reference like for the boots. Like I really didn't have like, it wasn't even reference, but I didn't have enough space to paint detail on the boots, but I still managed to paint some detail on there, so you can see that there. So yeah, you can see all of that there, and that's cracking, which that's not fun. So yeah, you can see all that paint detail there, and in fact, when I was like painting the boots, when I was actually painting like these black lines, that actually stained on the yellow areas, and I had to repaint that. And that just drove me insane after like hours of working on these legs and hours of working on with yellow paint. It just, bruh, and it didn't turn out as clean as I wanted it to look. And I think I spent like a good hour just correcting all of this, and that was not fun at all. So yeah, and the legs, of course, do have wraparound detail on all 4 sides of the minifigure's legs. For some reason, the inside of the legs turned out cleaner than the outside. But yeah, so I think that's going to be it for the legs. So now we can finally talk about the sleeveless arms. So I'm not really going to spend that much time talking about the sleeveless arms since they were pretty straightforward to do. And this was actually my first time doing something like this by making a second pair of arms for a figure. I never did this before, and I knew once I saw the second trailer for the movie, I just knew I had to do this for my Wolverine custom instead of just having like the sleeves, like with the sleeves on. And I kind of wish that the sleeveless arms kind of had like the shoulder pads, but I didn't want to go through the trouble of having to sculpt the shoulder pads again, so I'm pretty happy with this. And I did apply the 3 gauntlets on the arms, which aren't really like they're not really identical to the ones on these arms, but they're still accurate either way. So yeah, and I was originally going to paint some muscle definition on these arms, but I decided against that, and I just left them without any detail at all, and they turned out pretty good either way. And also, while I was like painting these black areas here, the black paint did kind of stain onto the flesh tone, and that was not fun, and that required like multiple coats to correct. So but yeah, guys, I think that with all that said, it's time to finally wrap up this video. Alright guys, that's going to be it for my Deadpool and Wolverine showcase video. Hope you all enjoy. These figures just took so long to make, and I'm just so happy to have finally finished them after months of work. So now I can finally get back to working on all the other figures I'm currently working on, and hope to get showcases of them out before the year ends. And let me know what you think of these guys in the comment section below. And before we close out this video, I do want to mention really quick that will unfortunately only be making Sonic and Shadow for Sonic the Hedgehog 3, so I can at least get showcase out for the release of the movie, and just to make my life easier. And I'll probably do a spin-off showcase for Tails, Knuckles, and Robotnik, and other characters next year, but I don't know. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out really quick before I close out the video. But yeah, guys, that's going to be it. I hope you all enjoyed, And if you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell for you not to miss any new videos for the rest of the year and beyond. And that also helps out the channel as well. But yeah, guys, hope you all enjoyed. And this is Lego News, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.
He has risen, baby girl.
And I don't want the world to see me, 'cause I don't think they'd understand when everything's made to different.